In this video, I'm going to show you how to create the project 2.4 for Principles of Manufacturing. In this project, we're going to cover how to do sweeps, circular arrays, and some other secondary feature modeling, as well as extruding using revolves. So, this is going to be our final product. To start out, what we want to do is we're going to look at our first sheet on our print, which will be our center post. So let's go to Fusion 360, and in here what we want to do is we want to make sure that we are in the proper folder in our design area. So click on the waffle and open up our data panel, and in here I'm in my Principles of Manufacturing, right where I want it to. So what I want to do is I want to save this as 2.4 and click Save. Now to start out, we're going to create a sketch, and this is going to be on our XZ plane. Remember, Z is on our blue axis, X is on our red, and Y is on our green. So I'm going to select our XZ axis right there. And we'll look at the prints, and we see that this is 3 inches tall. Overall, it is 2 inches wide from there to there, and we've got a little knob. What I'm going to do is I'm going to split this in half and create the left-hand side of this, and then what I'll do is I'll revolve this around that center axis. So we'll go back to Fusion 360. I'm going to create a line, and I'm going to make this a construction line so that we can revolve around it. And I'm just going to go from my origin up at least 3 inches. Could be a little bit more. Mine's 3.5 or so. Then from there, what I'm going to do is I am going to make another line, but it's not going to be a construction line. It's going to be a standard object line. And I am going to, according to the print, I'm going to go over an inch, and how I found that is my diameter is going to be 2 inches. I want to take half of that, which is an inch, and click on the center right there. I can type in an inch, hit enter, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just roughly create the rest of that shape right there. So we'll go back and we'll take a look at this again. Overall height is 3 inches, and from the bottom to that corner right there is going to be 2.75, and then finally the width of that corner is 0.25. So when we're back in here, we'll click on Sketch Dimension or Create Sketch Dimension, or you could also hit D on the keyboard. And we go from the bottom to the top. That's going to be 3 inches. And then we go from the bottom to this point right here. That's going to be 2.75 inches. And then we go from, at the bottom right there, we go from this corner to that corner, and that is going to be 0.25. So there we have the rough dimension, or the rough outline of this, and it's fully constrained. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to create a circle right here that has a diameter of an inch, and we're going to dimension it, and then we will trim away from there. So my circle, I'm just going to draw it right there with a diameter of an inch. And we're going to look at the location of it. It is 1.75 up for the center, and it is 1.5 inches from the center to the side, or from the center point it's going to be 0.75. So I'll come back here and we'll select our dimension tool. Going from the bottom up, that is going to be 1.75, and coming from our center over, that is going to be 0.75. From there, what we're able to do is in our modify area, we're able to trim, and I'm going to trim out the center of this circle right there and that center line right there. So then, last thing is I'm just going to close down this sketch, and if you noticed before, I did not have a filled in area. So if I wanted to revolve this, I wouldn't have been able to do so because it was not completely filled in. But I took a line and I closed it down, and now we have a fully closed, fully constrained sketch. So I'm going to finish that sketch, and I am not going to extrude it, I'm going to revolve it. My profile is going to be this profile. My axis is going to be that construction line that I put in before, and we're going to be going all the way around. So then I'm going to hit OK. The next thing that we're going to do is we are going to sketch the pathway for our sweep of one of our arms for our wheel. So I'm going to create a sketch, but instead of putting this on an actual face, because we have just rounded faces right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on my XY plane so that I get a solid or a flat surface to be able to sketch this on. So again, with this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a line, and this one's going to be a construction line, and we will take a look right here, and I'm going to create my construction line from this point right here to this point right here, and then after I do that, I'm going to create this line right here, and I'm going to sweep a shape around that, and here's the dimensions for that shape right there. So the construction line that I'm going to be putting in from here to here is going to be 1.75 inches. So we go back to Fusion, and I'm coming up, and I'm going to go straight up 90 degrees, 1.75 inches. And that's going to get us into the center of our round right there. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a horizontal line there. We're going to have two arcs and then a smaller horizontal line over there. To be able to do that, Fusion makes it very easy. I'm going to click on the end point of that. I forgot to turn off the construction, so we want to make sure that this is an object line. Make sure that your construction line is not selected. I'm going to go straight to the left, make sure that it's horizontal. And then what I'm going to do is, before I start drawing my next line, I can create an arc out of here. I'm going to bring my cursor back to the end point of this, and I'm going to click and hold down, and when I do so, I'm able to make a tangent arc. So then I let go. I'm not going to dimension anything right now, we'll come back and do that later. And then I'm going to do the same thing right here. Bring my cursor back to the end point of there, click and hold, and I'm able to create an arc coming over here. And then finally, we're going to create a straight line coming out from there, and we can click the little check mark to be finished. So let's go back to the print. From here to this point right here, that's going to be an inch high, and from the center point to the beginning of our arcs are going to be 2 inches. We come back to here, and I'm going to type D on the keyboard for dimension. From there to there, that's going to be an inch. And from here to here, that is going to be 2 inches. If we notice here, I lost my constraint of being tangent. And if we want to put that back in, we can click on our tangent constraint right there. We click on that arc and that line, and that will bring that back in so that we have a nice swooping arc, or a nice swooping 2 arcs right there. So then the last 2 dimensions we have is we have a radius of 1 inch, or a diameter of 2, and then on the top here the overall width of this is 4.15. So I'm going to come back to Fusion, and I'm going to dimension from my center to this endpoint right here. This is going to be 4.15 inches, and both of these are going to have a radius of 0.5. Excuse me, radius of 1 inch, diameter of 2. This is fantastic. If you want to change your dimensions, we can just double click on it and type in 1. Oops. Type in 1, press enter. Double click, type in 1, press enter. And now we are finished with that sketch right here. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to create a secondary sketch that's going to be on this outside face that's going to be parallel with the ZY plane, or the YZ plane. So we're going to want to have a plane, a work plane out here, so that we're able to make a sketch to be able to follow that, to be able to sweep that tool path that we just created. So I'm going to go back to Fusion, and to be able to create that, I'm going to create an offset plane, and I'm going to select my YZ plane, and I'm going to offset it at negative 4.15. And where I got that dimension from is that is the length from this center line to our edge right here. So that plane needs to line up perfectly with the end of that sketch. So after I have that construction plane in there, I'm going to create a sketch and put it on that construction plane. And I am going to create this rectangle right here. And how I do that is I am going to create a 2-point rectangle, and I'm going to dimension this so that it is 1/2 of an inch by 1/2 of an inch. And what I want to do is I want to make sure that this point is in the center of that line right there. So 1/2 of 1/2 of an inch is 0.25. And if I want to make this line at the same as that point, I'm going to be using a coincident constraint. So we click on that line and we click on that point, and it brings that in place. And now our square is completely black, meaning that it's fully constrained. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to create an arc. So this will be a 3-point arc. We'll click on that first corner right there, and then that second corner right there. And as I bring this up, it will snap so that both of those corners are tangent. And that's going to be at that perfect 0.25 radius. So then the last thing that we want to do, according to our print, is we want to put a radius of 0.19 on those corners. So we are going to go to Fillet, and I'm going to put in 2 fillets, and it's going to have a radius of 0.19, just like that. So now that our sketch is fully constrained, what I can do is I can finish that sketch. And what I want to do with this is I'm going to have this sketch follow this line, kind of like an extrusion, but instead of an extrude, we call this a sweep. So I click on Create, click Sweep, and I'm going to select that top profile and that bottom profile. We can see that we have our 2 profiles selected. On my path, I'm going to select that. And it defaults to cut because I'm going into another part. But instead of cut, I want to click Join, and we are able to make that first arm of our part. The next thing that we are going to do, according to our prints right here, is we have a 0.25 radius fillet on the corner. So I'm going to come back to Fusion 360, and I'm going to put a fillet on this corner of 0.25 inches. So once we have that, we have our first arm done. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this as a circular pattern 2 more times for a total of 3 pieces. So to do that, we go to Create, and then we go down to our pattern, and we have a circular pattern right there. We click that, and in here we can have faces, bodies, features, or components. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on our features, and for our features I'm going to click on the arm and our fillets. So that allows us to select those. If I were to just do the faces, I would have to select the entire thing. But to make it quicker and easier, I'm going to go down to our features, and I'm going to select that feature, and I'm going to select that feature. My axis that I'm going to select, so I click on that, and I can select on my z-axis. If you don't have your origin open, you can select your z-axis. And if it doesn't default to a number of 3 for your quantity, we want to change that to 3. But if I wanted to do 4, I could do 4, and it's going to automatically update how many I need. I'm going to change it back to 3, and then I press OK. And now I have 3 even arms. We have 2 more things to do. The first one is we're going to make this loop along with those fillets, and then finally we're going to put a hole in the center there. And to be able to make this ring right here, what I can do is I can take a look at this. So we have a radius or diameter of 1 inch for that, and then it is going to be 4.15 from the center to there, and it is going to be 2.6 up. So we'll come back, and I'm going to create a new sketch on my XZ plane, and I'm going to put a circle out here with a diameter of 1 inch, and again it's going to be 4.15 inches out and 2.6 inches up. So dimension in the center, and that's 4.15, and the last one is 2.6. And we'll finish that sketch. And to finish this off, we're going to create a revolve. So that is our profile that we're going to be using. Our axis, we can select our z-axis, and that will go around. And because it's touching solid objects, it's assuming that we want to cut. But we want to join these. We press OK. The last thing that we are going to do on this before our hole is we are going to put 1/4 inch fillets. So we select fillet, we're going to put a 1/4 inch fillet there, there, and there. And finally we want to put a hole in the center of this. And if we look at our print, we need to make a hole that goes all the way through at 1/8 of an inch in diameter. On the top here we have what's called a counter bore, which is going to be a diameter of 3/8 of an inch or 0.375, and it's going to go down 1/4 of an inch. So inside Fusion we have a pretty nice tool called the hole tool for that. So I select the hole tool, and it's asking me in this window, what face do I want to put it on? Well, I want to put it on this face. And for my reference, I want it to be the center of that circle. So I just selected that reference, and I selected that circle, and it's going to put it right in the center of there. Now what type of hole we have? We have a counter bore. And my distance, it's going to be going all the way through. So it goes all the way through. I don't need to tap it. Doesn't matter for the drill point because I'm going to be going all the way through. The diameter, the outside diameter for this, according to our print, was 0.375. So I come over here, and that is 0.375. My depth of that, which was found right here, is 0.25. So we change that to 0.25. And then my width, according to my print, is 0.125. So we change this bottom to 0.125. And then when we have all those settings in, we press OK. And there is our completed wheel. When we are finished, we want to save this. And then we are complete.